Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Orthodoxy 101, where we continue our look at Orthodox wedding service. Well, today we're going to begin at the beginning with the betrothal service. But I know what you're thinking. Doesn't it begin with an engagement service? Well, the engagement and the offering of the engagement ring is more of a cultural tradition than it is actually of a religious or Orthodox tradition. It is not required in Orthodoxy that you give a separate engagement ring. There needs to be a ring, but it doesn't have to be an engagement ring and a wedding ring. Of course, you can try to tell your fiancé that it's not part of the Orthodox tradition. I don't need to buy an engagement ring, and see how far that actually gets you, huh? And let's begin by defining betrothal, which is an offering of a pledge by each partner to one another to enter into a union of marriage. Now, today, the betrothal and the crowning are typically done at the same time. But in the ancient traditions, and even up until today, they can be done separately. So there can be a betrothal service, and then at a later time, there would be then the crowning service. Now, these two parts of the service, the betrothal and the crowning, actually follow the ancient Jewish and Christian traditions of marriage, where there was an offering of a ring, and then there was the sealing of the contract of marriage. So this is why they were typically done as two separate events. Another interesting point is that the betrothal service can be conducted in church, or following the ancient tradition, it could be conducted in the couple's home. And I have done that on several occasions where I've gone to the couple's home and they've wanted to have the betrothal service before. So that's kind of an interesting idea that some people are not aware of within the Orthodox service. So as I mentioned, the betrothal service begins with the couple standing in front of the table here, which is actually referred to as an analogion, and it will begin with the Litany of Peace, which is very similar to what we hear every Sunday at a divine liturgy. Following that will be the two most ancient prayers that we have within the Orthodox Church, and these were written around the 12th century. So actually, I should take just a minute to say that prior to the 12th century, there really wasn't an established rubric or a rite for a wedding service. It wasn't that complex. So we see by the 12th century and onward, the service, both betrothal and crowning, becomes much more elaborate. So going back, those first two prayers are the oldest prayers dating back to the 12th century. The first prayer speaks about God who blesses the couple. Now that's important because, again, the minister of the sacrament is not the priest, it is God. And it is through the priest that this blessing then occurs. And this first prayer also speaks about the idea that God brings back into unity that which was disunified, referring back to the fall. And then also makes reference then to the patriarchal times, talking about the blessing of Isaac and Rebekah, and I'd like to read that prayer now. O eternal God, who has brought together into unity the things which before had been separate, and in doing so did impose upon them an unbreakable bond of love, who did bless Isaac and Rebekah and declared them to be inheritors of your promise. Do you yourself, O Lord, bless these your servants and direct them in every good work. And so you might be asking yourself, why indicate just Isaac and Rebekah? I mean, there are many other people in the Old Testament that could be mentioned here. But the reason is that this is the earliest reference in Hebrew Scripture that we have of a betrothal, where Isaac sent Abraham to find a wife, and that wife was Rebekah. Now, the second prayer, while it does offer the couple a blessing by God, it also contains a very significant theological and Christological element that is important to how we understand Orthodox marriage. O Lord our God, who espoused the church as a pure virgin, called from out of the Gentiles, bless this betrothal, unite these your servants, keep them in peace and oneness of mind. And so what we see here is a comparison of the uniting or the union of the couple to one another as Christ united the church to himself. And this is what we hear constantly on Holy Monday and Tuesday of Holy Week. And notice also that it is a uniting of the Gentiles to the church. And so it shows this very Christological idea of how Christ is unified with the church, or better, that the church is unified to Christ as the couple is unified to one another. Now, the next part of the betrothal service is where the priest blesses the couple with the rings, and then there is the exchange of rings done by the kubata or the kubata, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in another video. But what is interesting is that this part was not present in any of the ancient rites. It only comes in around sometime between the 12th and the 14th century. And actually, the original tradition was that the couple exchanges the rings themselves between one another. Now, the last prayer of the betrothal service is a rather lengthy prayer. So rather than read it, I just want to summarize the 4 distinct parts of that prayer. The first part refers again to the betrothal of Isaac and Rebekah. The second part refers to the historical significance of the ring from the Old Testament through into the New Testament. The third part speaks about God's creation of male and female and that man should not be alone on the earth. And lastly, the fourth part is God's promise to care for, protect, and strengthen this marital bond. At this point in the ancient tradition, the betrothal service would end, the couple would receive Holy Communion, and then they would be dismissed to go home by the priest. So, to conclude, why is the betrothal service so important? Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a confirmation in the community before God of the pledge that the couple have made to one another. And the symbol of that pledge is the ring, which is central to the betrothal service. Secondly, it offers to us the comparison, the relationship between the betrothal of the couple as Christ betrothed himself to the church. So, thanks everyone for watching, and join us in our next episode where we're going to be talking about the actual blessing of the rings. So, remember, like, share, subscribe. We see you soon.